Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Hormonal Mama podcast. I am your host, Kara Drescher, and today on the show, I am talking with Estelle Coombe-Heath. Estelle is a transformational life and health coach and cognitive behavioral therapist. We are specifically focusing today on an eating disorder, and we are specifically focusing on binge eating. We are talking about Estelle's personal struggle with binge eating and the point where she knew she needed help, she needed to make a change. So if you or anyone you know has ever struggled with an eating disorder, this is the episode for you. Estelle breaks it down and she talks with her own personal and professional experience to help you deal with your struggle. So you won't want to miss this one. Stick around. I'll see you in a minute. Hi, Estelle. Welcome to the show. I'm super excited to have you, and I just want to thank you for being here with me. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Cara. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so glad. I've really been looking forward to this for a while. I think that you have such a wonderful mission, and the work that you do, I just think is incredible and so needed. And I'm really excited to talk to you about it today and learn more about all this incredible work that you do and, you know, where it all came from. So I think a really good starting point here is to sort of talk about you and, you know, where this whole business of yours started. I know that you've overcome 2 eating disorders, emotional eating, body dysmorphia. That's a lot to deal with. And you've overcome all of this, and how incredible to get, you know, to just go through that and come out the other side like you have. And I just would love to know a bit more about that experience and how going through all of that has affected you and where you're at now in your life and in your business.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think we'll be here for a while, so I'll try and
That's okay.
I'll try and give you the short version.
No problem. Long
Oh
version,
my
short
gosh.
version, whatever.
So, you know, I did a little calculation the other day, and I was trying to figure out how long I really struggled with food issues and issues with my body. And it came down to probably like 2 decades.
Wow.
So like almost half my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm giving away my age, but like,
listen, I give away my age all the time. I'm going to be 42 soon, so no shame here.
I'm turning 41 this year. So
I get it. Totally get it.
And in that time, I've been on over 25 different diets.
Wow.
Some of those diets I've repeated many, many times. Some of those ones were like a one-hit wonder.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been through, I think what a lot of women experience is just like, you know, trying to figure out what is wrong with me.
Yep. I can relate to that.
Why can't I get this thing with food right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
But yeah, so I would say, you know, my real struggles where I kind of felt it more intensely was about 13 years of struggling, where I went from, this is when I roughly started working for my first corporate job, actually second corporate job. The hours were ridiculous. They really, they were slave drivers.
That's
I did
awful.
not get paid enough for what I was doing. I'd arrive at 7 in the morning and sometimes only leave at 12 p.m. at night. And through that process, I just lived off coffee and cigarettes. Back in the day, I used to smoke. And
same here.
So I'd get home at night and I would obviously binge eat, like, because I've had no time through the day. It was highly stressful. I'm exhausted. My husband now, we just started dating. He realized, geez, this chick can eat. So he started cooking me more and more food, and I just ate more and more as it's kind of went, you know,
right,
to the point where like one night I finished a whole chicken by myself, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot.
Totally.
And so from there, my journey started. I figured, well, this is not healthy. I need to do something about this. So that's where I went back into caring about my body and caring about my health. Went on a nice healthy eating plan, started running, And I fell into the eat less, run more story that we all know about nowadays.
Yes, we
from
do.
the diet industry.
Unfortunately.
So here we are. I'm cycling through these things, but my binge eating is still there.
Right.
You know, it's not as frequent, it's not every day, but my binge eating still crops up every second week, every third week. I don't understand what's going on. I start blaming food. So it must be sugar. Obviously, sugar is always the villain.
All the time.
So cut that out. Okay, no, that doesn't work, because then I'm back on binge eating like a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, no, maybe it's carbohydrates. Let's do the whole keto thing, or whatever the case is back in the day, whatever was fashionable.
Yeah, that's true. Well said. Whatever's fashionable. That's how it goes.
And still there's the binge eating. And so everything I tried, the binge eating was still like a kind of a you know, undercurrent in my life. And I didn't realize that that was more problem. I kept thinking, well, food is the problem. And I kind of just got stricter and stricter. 2015, I had a blood clot in my brain. Up until this point, I was running 60 to 100 kilometers a week. I'd run some days to the gym, work out for 2 hours, and run home.
Wow.
The blood clot was obviously not related to my over-exercise, but I had to stop exercising. And I was sitting in the hospital bed, and this is where I realized something was wrong with me. I've just been given this diagnosis of, you have a blood clot in your brain. It's serious. And I'm thinking about how crap this is, because I'm dealing with this blood clot, but now I have to deal with eating hospital food, which I don't know what's in there. I can't tell what oil they use to cook it. I don't know how many calories are in there. It's not the food that I normally eat.
Right.
And they're bringing me all this food. I don't eat all this food. Like,
totally.
So I had that. And then I wasn't allowed to go and run. So that's when I realized, Stel, there's an issue here. You have just been told that you have this life-threatening thing, and you're worried about food and burning it off.
Of course, because that's always what happens when it's this life-altering event, and you're still like on that path, and you think, wait, something's just not right here. Oh, wow. That's a lot to handle, really.
Yeah. So that's when I realized. So up until this point, I thought, my eating and my obsession with eating healthy and my obsession with running and everything was normal. Like, that's just what people do. Even though most of my friends said, you're crazy, you're doing too much. And I said, like, no, you rest when you're dead.
Totally.
So that's when I actually realized, wow, this is more than just dieting and being healthy. This is an obsession. I need to try and figure out what this is. And it took me a while to plug up the guts to go and see someone, because, what do you do? Like, we all women, we're successful, or, we carry on in our lives. How can you not have something as simple as eating right,
Right. Oh, of course. I mean, I totally get that. It because it's one of those things where you think to yourself, this is what I need to survive, and there's still something not quite adding up. What?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. I mean, that's an easy word to use. It's a lot more than frustrating, but
yeah. So I decided to go see a psychologist.
Good for you.
And she, because my symptoms were not as severe as the textbook, but she never asked me if I exercise or make up for my binge eating. She just kind of dismissed my symptoms and said, no, well, you just need to manage your anxiety better. You've just been through a trauma, and that's probably why you're overeating, and you'll be fine. And I was like, oh, okay. I then went to see a dietitian, and after a few weeks, I'm like, unfortunately, giving into my cravings again. That was the verbiage I used back then. It was just, I'm fighting these cravings. And she's like, well, you're just going to have to be more disciplined. And I'm like, well, thanks.
Yeah, that's not really helpful.
I am disciplined. You know, this
Yeah.
here's my food log that I so diligently track. So you can see that I'm disciplined. And like, because I mean, I used to track MyFitnessPal, the Weight Watchers app. I had an Excel spreadsheet where I just tracked my calories. And then I had a different Excel spreadsheet where I tracked my runs and the calories I burnt on that, which I also entered into MyFitnessPal and to the other apps. So I'm
because you know, I'm disciplined. Look, check it out. Oh gosh, that's so frustrating to just get terrible advice.
So that's pretty much like where I was. I felt stuck. I felt like there was something severely wrong with me. Kind of like everyone had, like, no one had these issues. They didn't obsess about thinking about food. They weren't thinking about how to make up for food. They just went about their day. And here's me, like, seriously, there's something wrong with me. If a psychologist and a dietitian can't help me, then, you know.
Oh, it's so incredibly
so annoying.
It's got to be so stressful too. I mean, I don't have firsthand experience, so I can't relate completely, but I can relate to issues with anxiety and depression and being blown off and being told, oh, you're fine, you're overreacting, or whatever it is. And that's like a punch in the gut, for lack of better words. But I really get where you're coming from.
I get what you mean. And like, a lot of GPs and doctors have often said to me, you need to manage your stress. And I'm like, thanks. But there's no guides, there's no the how to, because I don't think they even, like, you know, I don't want to assume, but I don't think they really have the resources to help people manage stress.
You are correct. Unfortunately. So upsetting.
Yeah. So through this journey, I realized I did a mind power course, like also back in 2016. And I realized through that process, I'm not passionate. I was a business analyst. I'm not passionate about data or systems or whatever the case is. I'm actually passionate about wanting to help people be healthy. And back then I thought, well, I want them to be like me, eat less, run more.
Exactly.
You know, be obsessive.
Right, exactly.
Because that's what that was my norm. And I thought, well, you know, this is what it takes to you know, stay in the body I was. And then the binge eating, you just deal with it and run a little bit extra kind of thing.
Exactly, make up for it.
And so I went to study health coaching, and unfortunately that made my symptoms even worse, because now all of a sudden I need to be an example for my future clients. I have to live the dream and eat perfectly, and that's where my orthorexia developed, was the fact that now we were handed this signature cleanse from the health coaching world, and they're like, well, this is something you can help your clients with. And I took that as the Bible. I'm like, this is how you eat. And that just kind of, that orthorexia just kept triggering the binge eating, and the binge eating would set off the orthorexia again. So it was like a vicious cycle, continued with the with
so
guilt.
Difficult.
And my worst day ever was 2018. So this, like, there was a long period between me actually, you know, understanding that there's an issue, to me finding the right person. 2018, I actually listened to someone who attended my health coaching school, but she had a lot of eating disorder and disordered eating knowledge, and she was talking about that, and I was like, a lot of what this chick says makes sense. Like, I do that and I do that, and oh my gosh, yes, I think about food constantly. It's like I can't do anything else. Like, it's just all consuming. And so I actually knew about her, and my worst night ever, my husband was away, and I already went through like a whole thing of binge foods. I stopped at McDonald's, what they call Macca's here in Australia. And so stopped at Macca's, got a whole more food than I would normally eat. And I thought, well, I'll eat this tomorrow as well, because hubby's away. and I ate everything. I also stopped at the supermarkets, ate more, got more snacks, ate all that. I ended up clearing out my pantry, eating absolutely everything that was in there. I even made a cookie dough and just ate it raw. Like it was just crazy. And I felt so sick. I felt hopeless. And I was sitting on the floor, just in pain, like so drained. And I was hugging my dog, Kaiser, crying. And I just said, that's it. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I can't. And that's when I reached out to this woman. And we had a chat, and she helped me. Eventually, she coached me through my eating disorders and getting on the right track.
That's great.
And yeah, so
I mean, it's so tough to go through that. You use the word hopeless, right?
Yeah.
And that's what it feels like when you're so, you said a bunch of things that even though I haven't been through it, I can relate to with other things, that all consuming, that obsessive thought, process, thinking about food all the time, and just getting to that point, like you said, that hopeless place where you're just like, well, what now? Because and so that's just so fantastic that you found that help eventually. I mean, I can't believe, not that I can't believe, but I can't believe that you endured going to see the psychologist and the doctor and the dietitian, and nobody's really helping you.
Yeah.
They're just sort of like, oh, you're fine. I hear that, just as a side note, I hear that so often from women going through anything, really, like anything that's not the norm. And they struggle because no one takes them seriously, and they just blow them off, and they're just like, oh, you just got to do this, you'll be fine. And it's not like that. It runs a lot deeper than that.
It does.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh,
absolutely.
I interrupted you there. I'm sorry.
No worries. No, like as I said, this is a long story.
But that's good. It's part of who you are, and I like that.
So yeah, eventually, so through my coaching journey, I never actually thought that I would help people with binge eating. I thought I would just help people with general health, like and I realized, and my coach actually said to me, Stel, you've got so many gifts, because I'm a yoga teacher as well. I studied yoga and energy healing. And so she's like, you've got all these gifts and you've been using them through your recovery. Like, that's so unique to you. Like, why don't you?
I mean, yeah.
Like, and you've been through binge eating, you know it firsthand.
Right.
I think this is where you need to specialize, and she kind of lit a light bulb in me. And I thought, yeah, absolutely. If I can make a difference in just one person's life, then that would be amazing.
It's life-changing to just even, I totally get that. You can help one person. Oh, it just changes your whole life.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome that you're, that you teach yoga and the energy healing. And I particularly am excited about that because my background is as a massage therapist. I've spent the past 20 years as a licensed massage therapist and licensed esthetician. And I find it really exciting to connect with people who are in similar, fields, have similar experience, even though, yes, yoga and massage are different. Energy healing is different, but they intersect a lot.
Yes.
So that's really exciting to me, just as a side note. I really love that. I wrote it down for myself because I was so excited. I put a big exclamation point, like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because we both work with bodies,
Exactly.
And there's also the energy body. So both of them, yoga and energy medicine, and massage therapy, you work with the body, but also the energy body as well. Yes. So yes.
So awesome. I love that. I think that is so, I think, I like that your coach saw that in you and said, look at what you can do to help people. Cause you know what? You're not the only one. That's something that is so, I remind people, I remind myself, I remind clients all the time, you're not the only one. You're not alone in this. And when you can take this traumatic experience that you've been through and help other people go through their own version of this traumatic experience, how incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. I love that. I love that. Sorry if I interrupted you again.
No, all good.
I always do that. I talk, I listen, and then I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I think, oh, wait a minute.
No, I love your energy. It's amazing.
I'm a very excitable person. That's why I have a podcast, because I'm so excited all the time.
Awesome.
But anyway, continue what you were saying, please.
Yeah, well, I think I'm almost towards the end of my journey.
Well, take your time. There's no rush here.
I kind of evolved. My mission now is to actually help 1 million women have a better relationship with food and their bodies. And I've been published as an author. I wrote a food and mood journal. So that's really, really exciting.
That is so exciting.
I've got 2 books coming out. Like, I think it's weird how the universe works. In 2021, early 2021, I said I'm writing a book. I ended up contributing to 2 books.
Amazing.
So, and both of them talk about their collaborations with other people. But my first book is to do with, I call the chapter The Sacred Body Awakening, where it's just reconnecting with your body. And the second book was a contribution to the Energy Healing magazine's new book called The World of Energy Healing. And there I talk about how you can heal your relationship with food through yoga and energy healing.
Wow, you've had a great year. That's amazing. Congrats on both of those. That's a big deal. And that is so exciting. And I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to talk more about healing your relationship with food.
Yes.
But again, I don't want to interrupt your story because it's such a powerful story.
Let's talk about it. I'm sure everyone would want to know.
I mean, because food is such a complicated thing. And I think it tends to be more complicated. I'm not discounting men at all. I just think it tends to be more complicated for women. And I just think it's an important topic, especially for women, talking about our relationship with food, and it's a very complicated topic. So let's talk about it. Let's talk. How can one heal their relationship with food?
Yeah. Okay. So, I think the first thing we need to understand is that there is a relationship with food. I don't know, maybe because of the way I was with food, I didn't want to have a relationship with food. I try to avoid food as much as possible because I felt it was triggering. So for many people, maybe they know they have a relationship with food, but I think the first thing is to acknowledge that there is a relationship. We coexist. We can't live without food. And the more we try and label food as good or bad, or fear certain foods, unfortunately we're going to feel unsafe in that relationship. Same with, if you feel fear in a human relationship, then unfortunately we won't ever feel comfortable to open up, or whatever the case is. So what I also teach my clients is how to be safe and feel safe with food. And a lot of this is going against the norm of what the dieting world has to say about food. They take it too far.
Yes, they do. I couldn't agree more.
So, I mean, yes, eat your vegetables and, exercise and do all those things, but don't villainize certain foods, because you don't know if every person is different. And if you just listen to what other people are saying, you're creating this fear, you're creating cortisol in your body, and already you're putting yourself on the back foot. Your metabolism will slow down just by fearing what you eat.
Yeah, absolutely. Fearing what you eat. I mean, gosh, I don't think anyone has ever said it better than that.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what happens.
Write that down too. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, that should be like somehow in your tagline or something. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying fearing what you eat it's just such a powerful term because I mean, for me personally, I have a complicated relationship with food. I always have. I have had body image issues up until only the past couple of years has that sort of, I don't want to say dissipated because, you know, I'm human, and for me, I don't think it'll ever go away, but there have been many times in my life where I just do have this fear of food simply because what's it going to do? How's it going to sit in my body? What's going to be the end result of this? And that's just such a difficult place to be. I love that you just said that. Oh my goodness. Yes. I hope you wrote that down for yourself.
Yeah, I absolutely did.
Good.
Little gem there.
Yes, it is for sure. It's amazing how we say these things and then we're like, whoa, I said that. Wow. And it is. I love it. Anyway.
So yeah, the first thing is to make peace with food. And I know that is why a lot of people need coaching, because that is not an easy thing to do, especially if that's your belief system or your paradigm that you've been brought up with for your entire life, you know, and we can't help not think that, because that's what we see and hear every day in the media, in our inbox, on, you know, social media. Like it's just constantly there reaffirming that belief and reaffirming that fear. So making peace with food, it's harder than it, you know, easier said or harder said than done.
Right. Exactly.
And so that's number one. Number two is what I talk about is kindness, or, you know, bringing compassion to yourself and your food choices, knowing that, especially as women, at different times of our cycle, we require more or less food, or the energy content of the food needs to change.
Right.
However, we always want to be perfect and eat the lettuce and, you know, and the boiled chicken like every single day. No, our bodies are different. Yep. So being kind to the days where you do have a little bit more food, and take the judgment out of it, because that's probably what your body needs.
Take the judgment out of it. You're so right. Oh my goodness. I'm writing that one down too. I'm going to have to put all of these in quotes.
Oh, amazing.
Estelle. I love it.
Amazing.
You're just so right.
So yeah, that's step number two. You know, that's a sense of kindness. And I think also coming from a space of compassion, where understanding that we all human, and at some or other point, every single person who's interviewed me on a podcast, or every single person I've spoken to on social media, or however I speak to them, they all end up telling me, when they find out what I do, they end up telling me when they've had issues, or there's very few who said, oh, I've never had a problem with food. I think I've only had one person who's ever said that to me. And I was like, wow, okay, you're like a gem.
Yes. Where did you come from? Are you an alien? That's awesome.
So compassion, understanding that food issues and leaning onto food. First of all, we've been conditioned that food is part of our culture. We celebrate with food, we mourn with food, we get consoled with food. So it's okay if you lean on food at difficult times. Definitely. Like, it's a human experience. Don't be hard on yourself. Take the guilt out.
Gosh, you are dropping a lot of gems here.
I need to chat to you more often, because I feel like this is just like conversations.
I love
it.
I'm so excited here, because it's like everything you're saying is so, I can't think of the right word. I want like, I can feel the word. I know what I'm trying to say here, and I can't think of it, but it's mind opening, if you will, because you know, you hear these things and you think to yourself, that makes so much sense. Why didn't I think of that before? Like, and this is coming from someone who has, like I said, always had a complicated relationship with food. And for me, the complication is I love to eat. Food is like, I love food, but there's always been this, but I'm not thin enough and I love this food, but I can't eat it because it's, you know, it's gonna make me fat. And then what? And then this, and then that. And, you know, it's just, I don't even know where I was going with that, but it's really empowering to hear you talking about all these things and wording it in such beautiful ways. I just
thank you.
love it. I'm so excited.
Amazing.
It is. It really is. And you know, and I think it's important because I think people often forget, you know, that while food is, you know, the thing we need in order to survive, other than water, it's a relationship. It is, you know, that it's not as simple as, okay, I get up, I have to eat this, I have to eat that, and then I'll go to sleep, and tomorrow I'll wake up and I have to eat this and I have to eat that, and then I'll go, you know what I mean? It isn't. There's a whole relationship behind it. And that's what I like about talking about healing the relationship with food, because it's in a lot of ways, I'm going to say this, it might sound weird, so different than our relationships with people. You know, it's of course it's a little bit different because we're not cannibals, we don't eat each other, but you get my point, you know, like,
well, they also, you know, there's some people who do that, but
that's a good point. That's an excellent point.
Another podcast episode.
That's a whole different conversation. But it's something super important, and it kind of brings me to another thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is becoming a body image role model for your children, because that's something so important, I think. You know, as someone who has had body image issues and has, you know, people in my family who have body image issues, I think it's something super important to be able to think about, okay, for my children, what can I do to be a better role model for them? You know, like I have two kids, I have a son and I have a daughter. And, you know, something my husband frequently reminds me of is that, you know, men have body image issues too. They're different, but they're not any easier. It's different because our bodies are different, and our society, and I mean globally, our society, you know, men and women are different, and everything in between. And I just think that's a really important conversation to have, is, you know, how can I do this for my children? How can I be a better role model in terms of body image?
Yeah, look, I mean, if we want to really break the body stigma world we live in, that starts with us and the conversations we have verbally, but also how we look at ourselves in the mirror. You know, one of my clients in particular, we were kind of unraveling where her language came about, because she used to just always call herself a fat pig, and I'm like, where did this come from? Like, and we were talking about body image and everything else, and she's like, well, I remember when I was 3, I was standing in my mom's bedroom, and she was in front of the mirror looking at herself sideways and looking at her belly and saying, gosh, I'm such a fat pig. And that's what she heard every single day, until she just believed that's like that. Oh, if mom's that, then I must be the same.
That's my heart.
You know?
It really
So
does.
Unfortunately, you know, like children are like sponges. So whatever we say, whether it's in conversation with a friend or whether it's a conversation we're having to ourselves, not thinking the kids are around, they pick that up.
Yes,
so
do.
Whether, and I mean, I'm not saying you need to have a perfect body image before you can have that conversation, because, you know, we're all going to struggle with body image. You know, for me, it's been a lot of work, but you know, I think there are days where I'm not 100% happy with my body either. Other days I'm more comfortable, and currently I'm extremely happy where I am. And it's not because my body changed, it's just that's just what it is. Yeah. So first of all, just watching what we say and also what we do, you know, like like so many little kids nowadays are talking about diets. My niece is 6, and the other day she offered me a chocolate. It was over Easter, or it was almost a year ago. She offered me chocolate, and we've been eating quite a bit of chocolates, and I was just like, oh no, gosh, I've had enough. And she's like, oh, are you on a diet? And I'm like, no, I'm not on a diet. She's like, oh yeah, my friend at school is on a diet. I mean, she's 6, and her friend is on a diet. Like,
that makes me so sad right now to hear that. That actually like physically upsets my stomach to hear that.
Yeah. So I mean, this is what they hear, and this is the conversations they are having with their little friends at school. So it really, I think that the age is just younger. I mean, I think we only started talking about dieting at the age of maybe 12.
That's the exact age I was just going to say. Right before you said it, I was thinking probably about 12.
Yeah, but that conversation is now at a much younger age. Right. So like, and in saying that also, you know, I think I didn't grow up with social media. Like, I'm born in the 80s, like there was no social media. So I can't blame social media. It has aggravated everything. But I grew up, I don't know if it's the same in the States, but I grew up in South Africa. What they used to do with magazines is they would put them at children's height.
Oh,
like this is before they realized that sweets work better at that height. They thought they make more sales. But the magazines would be there with some lady who's lost a few kilos. She's standing there in her bikini, and the headline would say, I am so much happier now. So the message we get is, oh, well, I always have to be on a diet because then I will be happy.
Exactly.
And a lot of my body image issues came from reading magazines and reading how models, this is how I started smoking, just so by the way, I read in I think Elle magazine that some model maintained her weight by eating very little and smoking cigarettes to suppress her appetite.
I feel like we might have read the same article, because I remember being younger. I must have been a teenager, and I remember vividly always thinking, okay, I think, because I remember reading an article where I think the girl talked about how she just ate lettuce all day.
Yeah.
And that was how she was so thin, and smoking her cigarettes and drinking her coffee. And I remember being like, that sounds horrible, but is that what I need to do if I'm going to look like that? Because I mean, that's what they make you think. Yeah. And like, I just for a very long time, particularly in my 30s and now in my 40s, I've thought so much about what it was like to be a young girl and young teenager and young woman, and be surrounded, like you said, by the magazines. They're the ones that get you. It's not even at least for me, it's not even on TV that gets me. It's always the magazines that did it. And all of them, it was the same thing, as always the girls in their bikinis, and me thinking, I want to look at that. I remember being at the beach. My parents used to have a house at the beach, and I remember going into my favorite store. It was very like hippie style, and I loved it. And I remember seeing this bikini top. It was like this real small, like triangle bikini, and like it was really pretty. But I remember looking at it, and I must have been 13, 14. I couldn't have been any older than that. And I remember looking at it and thinking, I'll never be skinny enough to wear that. And I just stood there feeling sad, because I knew I was never as thin as my mom and my sister. They're very petite, and I'm not petite, but I'm pretty small. But to me, I was huge, and there was no way I could ever that I was ever going to be able to wear a bikini, and especially not one like that. And it breaks my heart now to think, like, I was a kid. Why was I even thinking about that anyway? Because every magazine, whether it's for teenagers, like 17 magazine, it's the same thing. There's always this nonsense in there, and it really tricks you into thinking you're not good enough because you're not thin like this model.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, it's
Absolutely.
just, you're just not. And oh God,
Yeah.
that upsets me so much.
So, absolutely. So we had the magazines. Unfortunately, now kids have social media and everything else, which,
Yep.
So we need to kind of, and I hate using this, but censor what we look at,
Yep.
so that our kids don't see that.
I totally,
in a way, like.
I love that you're saying this, because you're saying it in such a way that makes sense to me that I wouldn't have even thought about. Because you're so right. You were talking about kids are sponges, right? And it's true. And like, we all know that, and everybody's really aware, but you don't really always think about it. Like, I didn't realize until very recently that my little 2.5-year-olds, everything that comes out of my mouth eventually comes out of their mouths.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's really shocking, especially when you think of the things that you may have said, like when I'm having a down moment or something and I say really negative things about myself, and I think to myself, my kids are hearing this. That's not okay. And it's exactly the same thing with our bodies.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so speaking to my soul here. I'm trying to keep from getting like teary-eyed here. But it's such an important conversation. I want to ask you something, and it's about supporting someone with disordered eating, because I think there's two very important sides, and that's being someone who is recovering from an eating disorder and learning how to treat their body and take care of their body. And I want to use the phrase love their body, but I know that that is complicated, and that is very difficult, and is not as straightforward as your body is beautiful and you should love it. Okay, great. Thanks for the words, but that means nothing to me,
Yeah.
But there's the other side of it, which is supporting those people that we love who are going through something so difficult. And I think it's a really, really important thing to understand how to support someone. How can we provide the support to someone going through disordered eating who needs support? Because we all need support when we're going through difficult things, traumatic events, all kinds of things. So let's talk about that for a minute. What can we do? What can we do to support people that we love?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to have the conversation with them. Be prepared that you'll probably get met with resistance, or I don't have a problem. Like in my world, I'm like, I'm fine. This is normal. This is what everyone should be doing. So, but just having a open conversation with them, I think is a good place to start. Just figure out, like, well, look, are you okay? Like, can I help you in some way? And let them know that this is not about judgment, so don't spring it on them. I think make sure that it's a good time to have the chat, but also let them know that there are resources out there that can help them. So I think when we come with love and from a space of genuine support and care, that will go a long way. But also be prepared that there might be shutdown and there might be denial, and
for sure.
But that conversation might just trigger something in them to go, oh wow, like me, I didn't, until I heard my coach talk about issues like disordered eating, I didn't think that was, I didn't think I had an eating disorder. So just having that conversation might actually allow the person to stop and think and go, wow, okay, maybe there is something deeper than me just struggling with staying disciplined on my eating plan, or me just getting on the scale every day hoping it's different, or whatever, me abusing laxatives, or whatever the story is there. Like, it is a hard one, unfortunately, But I think mostly just being supportive, having the conversation. And also, like we were just talking about the body image role model, remove any language that could be triggering, you know. Yes. Like we could be sitting like at a restaurant having a conversation as friends about our bodies or how we're not happy about it, and someone next to us might just, if not even part of the conversation, might just hear what we're saying, and that could be triggering for them. Exactly. So that's again, it's point. Yeah, like you don't know we don't know what we what happens in someone else's mind when we actually say something. And another thing we can also do is find compliments that are not body related.
Yes. Ooh, I like that. I'm gonna write that
and
down.
I was stumped at thinking about, well, how can I compliment someone if I don't start with the "you look" and finish the sentence? Like it really stumped me, and I had to really think hard. But like I started complimenting people in other ways. Like I'd be like, gosh, you're so organized, thank you for meeting at this time, or whatever the case is. Or, you know, if someone's dress is amazing, I'm like, gosh, that dress is beautiful. Like it looks, and again, then I'm using the word look, but it's just like,
but it's different.
It's different. I'm not trying to say, oh, well, have you lost weight, right? Or like what's going on? Like, you know, or, you know, if I really feel like someone is looking confident, I might say, well, you look radiant, or you look, you know, you just,
such a good word. It is, because it doesn't talk about their actual looks or their body. It's the oh gosh, I can't think of the word. It's the I can't think of the word. I hate when I can't think of a word. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They're exuding something, and that has nothing to do with how their body looks. Yeah. It's just, I love it. And I love the word radiant. I've always loved that word. but those are so.
And I mean, it's so true, because you could have two people wearing the same dress and probably the same size body, and one person might feel extremely confident and the other person might not. Yeah. And people can pick up that difference in that perspective as well. So yeah, it's not always about the size or what we wear. And yeah, so I'm still struggling to build that vocabulary and that tool to compliment people in different ways. I'm still learning a bit. There's I'm just trying to think of the author, but she wrote the book, My Body Is Not an Apology. And in her workbook, she has a whole bunch of ideas of how to compliment someone not to do with their bodies. Like, and I'm still trying to find some of those that will work in a general conversation when you meet up with your friend. And as women, we want to compliment each other, but like, it's so, like, I think the first thing we just want to say is, well, you know, let's compliment on the first thing we see. And that's usually obviously the external. It's much harder to go, well, gosh, you're such a loving friend. Like,
totally. I mean, you're right. It is. It's tricky, but gosh, what a smart approach, so that, you know, it becomes more about who you are and not how you look. I'm not sure if that's exactly what I mean, but that's the thing, is because I think a lot of body image issues, a lot of the time it's not totally centered around your entire body. It can be very centered just around like your face. Yeah. For example, how does my face look? Am I as pretty as that girl? Am I as pretty as that girl? And it's just, there's something about looking deeper and remembering that who you are is the important part, not how you look.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know? And I actually, there was this, sorry.
No, you're fine.
There was this quote, and I'm hoping I can just remember it, but it went something like, I don't know who said this, but I'm terrible. I always remember the quote, but I never remember who actually
I have that
who
same
I'm
problem.
quoting.
I have the exact same problem. And I'm like, wait, what? I know this. Can't remember. And then I look it up later.
So they pretty much said, no one cared what Marie Curie weighed when she invented penicillin. When she died, no one said, oh, well, she weighed 50 kilos her whole life. Woohoo, well done. You know, and she invented penicillin. No one cared. No one had anything to say about her body. I don't even know what she looks like. But I know who she is because of what she did. And I think that's where we need to get to, is stop looking at the exterior and start looking at what really matters.
Totally agree with you. And you're so right. I mean to yell at you. I'm just very excited. I'm very excited. All right, Estelle.
Yes.
I'm loving this conversation, but let's switch gears for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk some more fun stuff.
Absolutely.
This is the point in my interview where I like to ask some fun questions. I ask all of my guests these questions and I just love them. So I'm going to give you 2 questions. You can answer in whichever order you like. The first question is, who are 3 people who have had the most influence, the most inspiration in your life? That's number 1. And number 2, which is my absolute favorite, if you could have a dinner party or I don't know, let's say a walk on the beach or a walk in a park or whatever activity you enjoy, if you could have this gathering, let's call it a gathering, with 3 people, dead or alive, fictional or real, they don't have to be human. So that's why I put people in quotes. They can be characters from a book. They can be cartoon characters. They can be spirits, ghosts. I don't care. Anything you want. Anything goes in this question. This is can be a very difficult question to answer. So those, and the floor is yours. Get creative. You don't have to get creative, whatever it is. So those are your 2 questions, your inspiration people and your people you're going to hang out with. Who would those awesome. 3 be and why?
Okay, beautiful. Well, I think the first influential person for me is Gabrielle Bernstein. I just love the fact that, you know, she came from like a real big struggle with her drug addiction, and you know, she also had food and body issues along the way, but you know, she's just kind of turned her life around, and she can openly with confidence talk about it. You know, she's just so passionate about helping people, and I absolutely love that about her.
She's incredible. I agree with that.
So that's number 1. Number 2 is my coach, who actually helped me. Like, you know, she's not anyone, she's not a celebrity, she's actually quite shy, and but you know, she really helped me to unlearn everything that I've learned and believed about my body and about diets and everything else. And I almost want to get teary.
I totally get that, because the right coach is life-changing.
Yeah. And like, because of her, my life is so different. Like, and yeah, I'll always be indebted with her, like, you know, so that's person number 2. And then person number 3 is my dad. My dad recently passed away last year, but you know, he was an entrepreneur. He never gave up, and I think I get a lot of those kind of traits from him. Yeah, so he kind of, I didn't know it at the time. I never knew that I'd be an entrepreneur, but as I stepped into owning my own business, he really kind of started, you know, I'd really kind of admire what he used to like be as an entrepreneur. So yeah, those are
I love it. I love it. 3. Those are awesome. I love that. And they all make so much sense. I mean, it's a very personal question, so yeah, if they make sense or don't, it doesn't matter. But I think those are really, really awesome. And then who are your 3 gathering people.
My gathering people is going to be like a weird, like a freak show, really.
It's
like
always weird, and that's why I love asking this, because it's always strange. Always.
So, I mean, one is fictional, well, I think they're not. One's no longer here, and one is still alive, but also quite quirky. So, like, the first one is, there'll definitely be a unicorn there. Absolutely. Just there's no doubt about it. Whether that unicorn can speak or not, it will be there.
I love
because in my mind they exist.
Totally.
Louise Hay, which unfortunately she's passed, but like I draw a lot of inspiration from her. I I do a lot of my healings. I bring in the emotional stuff, and I draw on what she had to do on her work. And I just think she's just such an example of saying, hey, we've got so many medical problems, but they're actually not medical. They are actually emotional. Wake up, world.
Yeah, totally.
So I love her stuff. And the last person, you might laugh, but Johnny Depp.
Why would I laugh? Come on, I love that.
Only because I had a massive crush on him when I was obviously younger.
I mean,
but I just really admire his quirkiness and just his talent. And I would just love to have a conversation with him and just find out how, about his life and how he gets into these roles, and if he is really like the roles that he plays. Yeah, that would be
totally. It's not weird to me in the slightest bit, if I'm being perfectly honest. I think it makes so much sense, and I think that's awesome, and I love him too. So
there we go. Well, you're welcome to come to my little get together with these.
I would love to be at that gathering. And let me tell you something. When you said unicorn, I am so on board with that, and I'm going to tell you why. Last year, I did an episode of my podcast where I interviewed myself, and I asked myself all the same questions that I asked my guests.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, was so weird and so much fun at the same time. And I asked myself this question: who would be at my dinner party? And it occurred to me that I would invite a dragonfly, because I love dragonflies. I have a fascination, obsession, love of dragonflies.
Beautiful.
So for me, your answer of unicorn, I was like, yes, love it. I love it. I mean, that's such a cool gathering, and it's not a freak show at all. I love it. I totally would sit there and be like, this is amazing. This is the best gathering I've ever been to in my life. Oh my goodness. I want to do this again tomorrow. So my very last question for you, Estelle, is where can our listeners connect with you, learn more about you? How can they find you?
Awesome. So first of all, I also have a podcast called Beyond Overeating by Wholesome Lifestyle Project. So if you are struggling with your eating, if you feel embarrassed about your eating habits, or you've got a problem with binge eating, I obviously give a lot of advice on there. Also, my website is wholesomelifestyleproject.com. And I'm also on Instagram, Wholesome Lifestyle Project.
I'm just writing it down for myself. I love it. I'll put that in the show notes. I am so excited. Estelle, I really want to thank you so much for being here with me today. But I also want to thank you for sharing such a personal, incredible story. You've been through so much, and you've completely turned your life around in a way where you're making such a difference in people's lives. And I think that's incredible. And I think that is amazing and beautiful, and words that I don't even know exist. That's how inspired I feel. So thank you for doing the work that you do. And thank you for being here with me and sharing about it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a great pleasure to be here, and you made it really easy to chat and talk about it, and I really enjoyed it.